The message came through while I was halfway through my shift at the construction site in Toronto. Canada wasn't where I imagined I'd end up, but the money was good, and the project, a massive high-rise in the heart of downtown, needed every skilled hand they could get. It was supposed to be just 3 months away from home, away from Kansas, away from Jennifer. We'd done this before, and it wasn't easy, but we always managed. At least, I thought we did. It was a WhatsApp notification from Dave, our old neighbor. I didn't expect much. He'd occasionally message me about small things, like the time my lawnmower ended up in his garage or when Jennifer borrowed his drill and forgot to return it. But this wasn't one of those casual notes. "Donald, I wasn't sure if I should send this, but you need to see it." Attached was a photo. The moment I opened it, my stomach tightened. It was Jennifer, sitting on the porch swing at Tom's place. Her head was tilted back in laughter, and Tom was beside her, holding a glass of what looked like iced tea. His body language screamed familiarity. His hand rested lightly on her knee, and she didn't seem to mind. The timestamp on the photo was from the previous evening. My first instinct was disbelief. This was Jennifer, my wife of 15 years, the mother of our 2 kids, the woman who kissed me goodbye at the airport just a month ago, telling me to stay safe and come home soon. She wouldn't betray me. Not her. Not us. But the more I stared at that image, the harder it became to convince myself it was innocent. Dave's message followed. "They've been spending a lot of time together since you left. Didn't want to get involved, but I thought you should know." The blood drained from my face. It wasn't just the photo or the message, it was the context. I had known Tom for years, ever since he moved in a few houses down. A widower with too much time on his hands, he was always the guy lending tools or fixing fences. He'd helped Jennifer a few times when I was away, and I had thanked him for it. But this? I tried to push the thought away. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe Dave misread the situation. Maybe I was misreading it too. But the doubts didn't care about my reasoning, they kept circling like vultures. I wanted to call Jennifer right then and there, but what would I even say? "Hey, Jen, why are you laughing with Tom in our neighbor's photo?" It sounded insane. Yet the image was there, undeniable proof that something wasn't right. For the rest of the day, I walked around in a fog, barely registering the noise of the construction site or the voices of my coworkers. The picture, the message, and Dave's unspoken warning all played on a loop in my head. That evening, I sat in my small rented apartment, staring at the photo on my phone like it held the answer to some puzzle I couldn't solve. No matter how many times I zoomed in or studied Jennifer's face, the facts wouldn't change. She was sitting there with Tom, smiling like they didn't have a care in the world. My chest tightened. Was I overreacting? Was this really what it looked like, or was I letting the distance and my own insecurities cloud my judgment? I needed to know more. The photo and Dave's vague warning weren't enough. I had 2 months left in Canada, and there was no way I could sit here every night, torturing myself with doubts. I called Dave. He picked up on the second ring. "Hey, Donald," he said, his tone uneasy, like he'd been waiting for this call. "What's going on, Dave?" I asked, keeping my voice as steady as I could. "What made you send that photo?" He hesitated. I could hear him shifting uncomfortably. I wasn't sure if I should say anything, but, man, it's been bothering me. I've seen them together a lot lately. Not just that one time. She's been over there at least 3 or 4 times a week, sometimes for hours. They're always in the backyard or on the porch, just talking, laughing. It's not normal." His words hung in the air like a weight pressing down on my chest. "Are you sure it's not just neighborly stuff? Maybe she's bored or lonely and needs someone to talk to?" Dave sighed. "I get that, Donald. I really do. But this doesn't feel right. They're comfortable, too comfortable. Look, I'm not trying to stir up trouble, but I know what I saw. Last night, it was almost midnight, and she was still there." Midnight. My stomach churned. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "I didn't want to get involved," he admitted. "But you're my friend. You deserve to know if something's off." I thanked him and hung up, though the word felt hollow. I wasn't sure what I was thanking him for, confirming my worst fears? Giving me a reason to distrust Jennifer? Forcing me to confront something I wasn't ready to face? That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the photo, her smile, the way Tom's hand lingered just a little too close. My mind filled with questions that had no answers. Had I been blind to something brewing between them? Had I missed signs because I was too focused on my job, on providing for the family? By the time the first light of dawn broke through my window, I couldn't take it anymore. I needed to hear her voice. I picked up the phone and called Jennifer. She answered after a few rings, her voice as bright and cheerful as ever. "Hey, honey. How's Canada treating you?" I leaned into the conversation, trying to sound casual. "Not bad. Same old. Long days, lots of meetings. How's everything back home?" "Oh, she said breezily. "Keeping busy. The kids are doing great. Rachel got an A on her history test, and Tyler's soccer team won their game last weekend." "That's great," I replied, masking the tension in my voice. "What about you? What VE you been up to?" She laughed. "Just the usual. Laundry, errands, catching up with the PTA moms. You know how it is." "And last night?" I pressed, trying to sound nonchalant. "What did you get up to?" "Last night," she repeated, a note of surprise in her voice. "Oh, nothing much. Just relaxed at home. Watched a little TV, read a bit. Same old. Not a single mention of Tom." I didn't push further. Instead, I kept the conversation light, asking about the kids and the house, avoiding anything that might make her suspicious. But inside, I was seething. Why lie? If there was nothing to hide, why not mention him? When we hung up, I called Dave again. "Dave, I need you to keep an eye on her," I said bluntly. "If you see anything, hear anything, if she's over there again, I want to know." There was a long pause. "Donald, are you sure you want to go down this road?" "I don't have a choice," I said. "I can't sit here for the next 2 months wondering if my wife is sneaking around with the neighbor." "All right," he said finally. "I'll let you know if I see anything." For the next few days, I tried to throw myself into work, but the unease never left me. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart jumped, half expecting it to be another message from Dave. And then, 4 days later, it came. "Donald, she's there again. This time it's different. They're inside the house. Curtains are drawn." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. My mind raced with possibilities, none of them good. Why would they be inside? Why draw the curtains? I tried to convince myself it was innocent, but the doubt had already taken root. I called Jennifer that evening, forcing myself to act normal. She didn't slip up, didn't mention anything out of the ordinary. But her voice felt distant, rehearsed. The more I thought about it, the more convinced I became that I needed to confront her. But not yet. I'd wait until I was home. Until I could look her in the eye and hear the truth or the lies straight from her. And when that moment came, there'd be no escaping the consequences. The days crawled by. Between work and sleepless nights, I kept my mind occupied by going over every possible scenario. The logical part of me wanted to believe that Dave was overreacting. Maybe Jennifer and Tom had gotten closer because of the absence I'd created by working in Canada. But there was another part of me, the one that kept replaying Dave's messages in the photo, that refused to dismiss it as harmless. 2 weeks passed, and the updates from Dave kept coming. "She's over there again. This time she brought a casserole. They spent the whole afternoon together in his backyard. She left just before dark. Tonight, she stayed past midnight again. Same thing, curtains drawn." With every message, the knot in my stomach grew tighter. But I knew I had to play it smart. Calling Jennifer out without undeniable proof would only lead to deflection and excuses. She'd turn it around on me, accuse me of being paranoid, maybe even use my absence as a weapon. I needed to be patient, even if every part of me screamed to confront her. One evening, after another particularly vague and cheery phone call with Jennifer, I called Dave.
Have you noticed anything physical between them? I asked. My voice was low, almost like I didn't want to hear the answer.
There was a pause.
Not directly, he said carefully.
But, Donald, they're spending way too much time together.
And it's not just friendly neighbor stuff.
I exhaled sharply.
I need more than this.
If she's doing something, I need to know for sure.
What do you want me to do? Dave asked hesitantly. Keep watching, I said. If you see anything else, anything that leaves no room for doubt, I need you to tell me. He sighed. All right. I'll do my best.
The next few days were quiet.
Too quiet.
I didn't hear from Dave, and Jennifer's calls became shorter, less frequent. I told myself it was nothing, but the silence only fueled my suspicions.
Was she starting to catch on? Was Dave missing something? Or was I just losing my mind?
Then, one evening, Dave called me instead of texting. I thought you'd want to know this, he said, his voice tense.
I saw them leave in his truck about an hour ago. They came back 20 minutes ago. I don't know where they went, but...
Donald, they looked cozy.
My heart sank.
Did you take a picture?
No, he admitted. I didn't want to get caught. But I swear to you, something's not right.
They were laughing, and she was leaning in close, like really close.
Thanks, Dave, I muttered. My voice sounded hollow even to me.
After we hung up, I sat in my apartment, staring blankly at the wall. Every time I tried to come up with a reasonable explanation, I came back to the same gut-wrenching conclusion.
Something was happening. Maybe it wasn't physical yet, but it was heading there.
And I was stuck thousands of miles away, powerless to stop it. The next morning, I decided to confront Jennifer indirectly. I wanted to see how she'd react if I brought up Tom without accusing her outright. During our usual call, I asked casually, "So, how's the neighborhood been?
Everyone keeping busy?"
"Yeah, same old," she replied.
"It's been pretty quiet, honestly." "And Tom? He's been helping out with anything?"
I asked, keeping my tone light. There was a slight pause before she answered.
"Oh, just the usual.
He helped fix the fence last week."
"Why?"
"Just curious," I said.
"Dave mentioned he saw you two talking the other day." Another pause. "Yeah, he's been nice."
"I mean, he's got a lot of free time, so he's been helping out."
"Why? Does it bother you?"
There it was.
A hint of defensiveness. "Not at all," I lied.
"Just wanted to make sure he wasn't overstepping or anything." "Overstepping," she repeated, laughing nervously.
"Don't be ridiculous. Tom's just a friend."
"Good to know," I said, forcing a chuckle.
"You'd tell me if something was bothering you, right?"
"Of course," she said, her tone a little too bright. "There's nothing to worry about, Donald."
But I wasn't convinced.
Her answers were too smooth, too practiced. I could tell she was hiding something, even if she wasn't ready to admit it to herself.
Over the next few weeks, I asked Dave to double down.
"I need concrete proof," I told him. "Something I can confront her with when I get back." It didn't take long for him to deliver.
One evening, he sent me a video clip.
It was grainy, filmed from behind the fence separating his yard from Tom's. In the footage, I could see Jennifer and Tom sitting on the porch swing. They weren't touching, but the way they leaned toward each other, the way she laughed at something he said, it was enough to make my blood boil. I stared at the video, my hands shaking. It wasn't definitive proof of an affair, but it was close enough. And it was more than enough to confront her. With only a few weeks left in Canada, I started to plan my return carefully. I wouldn't tell her I was coming back early.
Instead, I'd show up unannounced, catch her off guard. If she was guilty, I'd see it in her face. And if she wasn't, well, I'd deal with that when the time came. But deep down, I already knew the truth.
Jennifer was hiding something.
And I wasn't going to rest until I found out exactly what it was. The weeks dragged on like years.
Every day felt like a test of endurance as I juggled work and the crushing weight of what I'd learned, or suspected, at least. I kept replaying that video Dave sent, each frame stoking the fire of suspicion.
Jennifer's laugh, Tom's body language, it all screamed intimacy.
Not proof of a full-blown affair, but it was close enough to gnaw at my trust. Finally, the day came. I was scheduled to return in 2 weeks, but I decided I'd leave early. I didn't tell Jennifer or the kids. I told my manager I had a family emergency and booked the next flight home.
When I landed back in Kansas, the familiarity of the place felt foreign.
It had been months, but the circumstances made it feel like years. My heart raced as I drove the rented car toward our neighborhood. Every minute felt like an eternity, the anticipation gnawing at me. What would I find? The sun was beginning to set when I pulled onto our street. I parked a few houses down, where I had a clear view of Tom's house. Jennifer's car wasn't in our driveway, it was parked in his. My chest tightened. I sat there for a while, watching, trying to calm the storm inside me. Then I got out of the car and walked toward Tom's house, keeping to the shadows. The curtains were drawn.
Dave hadn't been exaggerating about that part.
The house looked quiet from the outside, but I could hear faint laughter coming from inside.
I crept closer, straining to hear more.
My phone buzzed in my pocket, startling me. It was Dave.
"You home?"
I texted back, "Just got here."
"Outside his house." "She's inside."
"Careful, Donald.
Don't do anything rash." I didn't respond. Rash? What did rash even mean in a situation like this?
I moved toward the side of the house, where a small crack in the curtains offered a narrow view of the living room.
My stomach churned as I peeked in.
Jennifer and Tom were sitting on the couch, a bottle of wine on the table between them. She was laughing, her body angled toward him, too close for comfort.
And then it happened.
He leaned in, brushing her hair back as he whispered something in her ear.
She didn't pull away.
If anything, she leaned closer.
I stumbled back, my heart pounding.
I didn't confront her then and there. I wanted to burst in, to demand answers, but something held me back.
Maybe it was shock, or maybe it was the need for more clarity, more undeniable proof.
I retreated to my car and drove home. When I walked into the house, it was dark and quiet, the familiar space feeling cold and alien. I sat on the couch, staring at nothing, the image of them on that couch burned into my mind. Around midnight, I heard the front door open. Jennifer walked in, carrying her shoes in one hand. She froze when she saw me. "Donald," she said, her voice a mixture of surprise and something else, guilt, maybe.
"What are you doing here? I thought you weren't back for 2 weeks."
"I came back early," I said flatly. "Where were you?" Her eyes flickered, a split-second hesitation before she answered.
"Out with some friends."
"We had wine at Pam's place."
Pam.
A convenient name to throw out, since Pam lived on the other side of town and rarely crossed paths with me. I stood, crossing the room slowly.
"Friends, huh?"
"That's funny, because I could have sworn I saw your car in Tom's driveway."
Her face paled. "Tom's? No, you must have been mistaken. I was at Pam's." I didn't respond immediately.
I just stared at her, letting the silence grow heavier. "Donald," she said, her voice rising slightly.
"Why are you looking at me like that? What's going on? Why don't you tell me?" I shot back. "What's going on with you and Tom?"
Her mouth opened and closed, like she was struggling to find the right words.
"Nothing is going on with Tom. He's just a friend. He's been helping out while you've been gone, that's all." "Helping out?" I repeated, my voice dripping with disbelief. "Helping out with what? Keeping you company late at night? Drinking wine with you while the curtains are drawn?"
"Donald, stop it," she snapped. "You're being ridiculous."
"I can't believe you're accusing me of this. Do you even hear yourself?"
"Oh, I hear myself just fine, I said, my voice rising.
What I don't hear is you giving me a straight answer.
Her hands clenched into fists at her sides. I don't have to stand here and be interrogated like a criminal. I told you the truth, and if you don't believe me, that's your problem. With that, she turned and stormed up the stairs, leaving me standing there, fists trembling with frustration.
The next morning, I called Dave. She denied everything, I said. Claimed she was with Pam.
She's lying, Dave said without hesitation.
I know what I saw, Donald. You do too.
I need more, I muttered. I need something she can't talk her way out of.
Dave hesitated. I can try to get more, but are you sure this is what you want? Sometimes, knowing everything doesn't make it better.
I need the truth, Dave, I said firmly.
Whatever it is.
Over the next few days, Jennifer acted like nothing had happened. She went about her usual routines, smiling and laughing with the kids, pretending we hadn't had that argument. But I could see the cracks in her mask. The way her smile faltered when I asked too many questions. The way she avoided eye contact when Tom's name came up.
Dave kept sending updates. Pictures, timestamps, even brief videos.
Each one painted a clearer picture of Jennifer's betrayal.
It wasn't long before I had everything I needed.
Proof that she wasn't just crossing lines, she was tearing them down altogether. Now, it was time for the confrontation. By the time I had everything I needed, my emotions were no longer a chaotic storm, they were sharpened, focused. The pictures and videos from Dave left no room for doubt.
Jennifer wasn't just spending time with Tom.
They were crossing boundaries no married couple should.
I didn't sleep the night before. Instead, I stayed up in the living room, replaying the evidence on my phone.
There were videos of Jennifer leaving Tom's house late at night, pictures of them laughing together at a restaurant, and one damning clip where Tom leaned in too close and Jennifer didn't move away. When morning came, I was ready. Jennifer came downstairs around 8 a.m., dressed in her usual casual wear, jeans and a t-shirt. She greeted me with a smile like nothing had happened.
"Morning," she said, heading to the kitchen. "Do you want coffee?"
"No," I said, my voice cold.
"We need to talk."
She paused, her back to me. I could see her shoulders tense.
"What about?" "Sit down," I said.
She turned slowly, her expression wary now.
"Donald, what's this about?"
"Sit down," I repeated, my tone leaving no room for argument. She hesitated for a moment before sitting across from me at the table. I placed my phone on the table between us, the screen dark but ready. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice tight. "You've been lying to me, Jennifer," I said, my voice steady but firm.
"I know about Tom.
I know about the late nights, the wine, the hours you spend at his house." Her eyes widened slightly, but she quickly composed herself.
"What are you talking about?"
"I told you, Tom's just a friend.
He's been helping me while you've been away." "Helping you?"
I scoffed.
"Helping you with what exactly?"
"Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like he's helping himself to a little more than just neighborly chores." She bristled at my tone. "That's not fair, Donald. You've been gone for months, and Tom's been there for me when I needed someone to talk to."
"That's all it is, talking. You're making this into something it's not."
I picked up my phone, unlocked it, and tapped the screen to bring up the videos. I slid it across the table to her.
"Explain this, then."
She glanced at the screen, and her face paled. The video showed her leaving Tom's house late at night, her hair disheveled, her demeanor too casual for someone who had just been talking. That's nothing," she stammered.
"I went over to borrow something. It was late, and I didn't want to bother anyone else."
"Really?" I asked, my voice rising.
"You borrowed something at midnight and stayed for hours? How about this one?"
I swiped to another video of her sitting on Tom's porch, leaning in as he whispered something to her. "That's not what it looks like," she said, her voice cracking.
"Then what is it, Jennifer? What does it look like to you?"
"Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've been having an affair." her face contorted with anger.
That's not true. You don't get to accuse me of something like that just because you're paranoid. Paranoid? I snapped. I have proof, Jennifer. Proof of you sneaking around with Tom while I'm working my ass off in another country to provide for this family. She slammed her hand on the table. You don't understand what it's been like, Donald. You're never here. I've been alone, raising the kids, keeping the house running while you're off in Canada or wherever else you're needed. That's not an excuse to betray me. I shouted. I didn't betray you, she yelled back. Then what do you call it? I demanded. Because from where I'm sitting, it sure as hell doesn't look like loyalty. Her eyes filled with tears, but her expression hardened. You want to know the truth? Fine. Yes, I've been spending time with Tom. Yes, I've leaned on him because I needed someone. But it wasn't an affair. I never slept with him, Donald. I stared at her, searching for any sign of honesty. Her voice trembled, but her eyes didn't waver. Why didn't you tell me? I asked, my voice quieter now. Why didn't you talk to me instead of running to him? Because you're never here, she said, her voice breaking. You're always working, always somewhere else. I didn't want to burden you with how lonely I've been. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I had spent so much time building a life for us, I hadn't realized I was tearing us apart in the process. But it didn't excuse her actions. You had a choice, I said firmly. You could have called me, talked to me. Instead, you chose him. That's on you, Jennifer. Not me. She didn't respond. She just sat there, her shoulders slumped, her face a mix of guilt and defiance. I don't know if I can forgive this, I said finally. Even if you didn't sleep with him, you crossed a line. And once trust is broken, it's damn near impossible to get it back. Tears streamed down her face, but she didn't argue. She knew I was right. The rest of the day passed in silence. Jennifer stayed upstairs, while I stayed in the living room, replaying everything in my head. I didn't know what to do. Part of me wanted to pack my bags and leave, but another part of me, the part that still loved her, wasn't ready to give up entirely. I knew one thing for sure, things couldn't go back to the way they were. Not after this. The confrontation changed everything. The house was no longer a home, it was a battleground. Jennifer and I barely spoke in the days that followed. The atmosphere was heavy, every shared space charged with the weight of things left unsaid. Even the kids, perceptive as they were, started asking questions. Dad, are you and Mom okay? Rachel asked one evening while I helped her with her homework. We're fine, I lied, forcing a smile. Just grown-up stuff. She didn't look convinced, but she didn't press further. Tyler, meanwhile, had retreated into his room, spending hours playing video games, oblivious or pretending to be about what was happening around him. I spent those days thinking about the past. About Jennifer, about us. When we first met, she had been my everything. She was smart, driven, and fiercely independent. We built a life together, and I'd convinced myself that we were unshakable. But the cracks had been there all along, subtle, almost invisible. Had I ignored her loneliness? Had I been too focused on providing and not enough on being present? Those questions haunted me, but they didn't absolve her. Dave's evidence left no room for interpretation. Even if Jennifer hadn't slept with Tom, she had betrayed me in every other way that mattered. Trust, loyalty, and respect, all of it shattered. On the fourth night after the confrontation, I called Jennifer into the living room. We need to figure out what happens next, I said. She nodded, sitting on the edge of the couch. Her face was drawn, her usual confidence replaced by hesitation. I know, she said quietly. But I don't know what to say, Donald. I've already told you everything. No, you haven't, I said, my voice firm. You told me what you want me to believe. But let's get one thing straight, I don't trust you anymore. And I don't know if I ever will. She looked away, her hands twisting in her lap. I made a mistake, she said finally. I let things go too far with Tom. But I never stopped loving you, Donald. You have to believe me. Do I? I asked. Because right now, it feels like the only person you cared about was yourself.
Her eyes filled with tears.
That's not true.
I was lonely, yes, but I never stopped caring about us, about you, the kids, our family.
I didn't know how to handle it. Then why didn't you tell me? I demanded. Why didn't you pick up the phone and say, Donald, I'm struggling? Why run to him instead?
She didn't have an answer, just a choked sob that she quickly stifled. I spent the next few hours laying out the terms of what I needed if there was any chance of salvaging our marriage. First, I want you to cut all contact with Tom, I said. No more visits, no more texts, no more excuses to see him.
He's out of our lives. Period. Jennifer hesitated, then nodded. Okay. I can do that. Second, we need counseling, I continued. We're not going to fix this on our own.
She nodded again, though her expression was uncertain. I'll do whatever it takes, Donald. Third, I said, my voice hardening, if I catch you lying to me about anything, we're done.
Do you understand me?
Yes, she whispered. I leaned back, exhaustion washing over me.
This is your last chance, Jennifer. Don't make me regret giving it to you.
The next morning, she told me she had already blocked Tom's number and sent him a message ending their so-called friendship.
She even showed me the message, though I doubted she would have been honest if I hadn't demanded it.
Dave confirmed later that week that he hadn't seen her near Tom's house or noticed any interaction between them. For now, she seemed to be sticking to her promise. We started counseling a week later. At first, it felt pointless, an endless cycle of rehashing the same arguments, the same blame, the same pain.
But slowly, the sessions began to chip away at the walls we'd built between us.
Jennifer admitted that her loneliness had pushed her to seek comfort in Tom, though she insisted again and again that it had never been physical. I didn't fully believe her, but I let it go.
The counselor focused on rebuilding trust, on communication, on addressing the root causes of what had gone wrong.
It was exhausting, draining, and at times, it felt like we were spinning our wheels. But it was better than nothing.
Weeks turned into months.
Jennifer and I began to find a rhythm again, though it was tentative at best. I still couldn't look at her without seeing the betrayal, but I was trying, for the kids, if nothing else. One evening, after the kids were in bed, she came to me in the living room.
Donald, she said softly, I know I don't deserve it, but I need to ask for your forgiveness. I didn't answer right away.
I stared at her, searching for some sign of the woman I had fallen in love with all those years ago.
I don't know if I can forgive you, I said finally. But I'm willing to try.
Her eyes filled with tears, and for the first time in months, I saw a glimmer of hope in her expression.
Trust isn't something you can rebuild overnight, and some wounds take a lifetime to heal.
But for now, I'm staying. For the kids, for the life we built, and for the chance, however slim, that we can find our way back to each other.
And if we don't, at least I can say I tried.